There is a place where you can always go. Come with me. Where it's all right to let your feelings show. Come with me. What a pleasant journey, isn't very far. We can go together, stay right where you are. And now it's time to start. It's right here in your heart. There is a place where you can be yourself. Come with me. And it's a place where you can free yourself. Come with me. And you know it's waiting, not so far away. Need no reservation, we can go today. And now it's time to start. It's right here in your heart.
Eric Butterworth tells us that it is rare that when we pray, that we seek a first-hand experience of God, an effusion of light. Normally, our prayers are an attempt to coax a miracle from a reluctant God. Even in New Thought, because many of us are not yet convinced that we cannot be separate from the one abundant, creative, powerful life, our prayers can still slip into an out there model, perhaps just in case. Butterworth writes, "Man is a creature of light. Thus, even if we frustrate it through fear, we are always in the flow of guidance. If we pray to God out there for light and guidance, our prayer may actually block the flow of light and guidance from within. The need is to lowly listen, to get into the consciousness of the flow. Light is an omnipresent reality. We don't have to reach it or even reach for it, but to give up the very desire to reach. Be still and know, I am in the flow." And so today, will you join me once again in this work we do together, to know in the very marrow of our bones, without even the shadow of a doubt, that there is only one life, one fountainhead of being, one wellspring of love, of light, of intelligence, of wisdom and power, and that this life is everywhere present. Today, let us together seek a first-hand experience of God as an effusion of light. Light is the reality of God within all creation. It is the reality of our own potential. Will you know with me that there is no place that we can go where God is not. We cannot be separate from that out of which we are made, which is the only substance out of which we can be made, because it's the only stuff that is. It is us. We are of it. One definition of God is a sphere whose center is everywhere and whose circumference is nowhere. God is a sphere whose center is everywhere and whose circumference is nowhere. And thus, right where you are is the center of God. There is nowhere for your prayer to go, for you are the nexus. So let your prayer for today take root in your very breast. Let it beat in rhythm with your heart. Let it live there. Let it blossom there. The kingdom is within. Breathe life into it right there. Know that the good that you long for is birthed within you. It is already part and parcel of your being. Allow it to be. Jesus said, I am the light of the world, but he also said, you are the light of the world. Let your light so shine. You are the light of the world. Any naysaying voices rising up in your head? Turn your attention back to God. You are the light of the world. Does fear raise its head? Anxiety, the responsibility of being the light in the world. Breathe a golden light right where those thoughts reside. You are the light of the world. Truth, this light emanates from you. Fear it not. Claim it. Revel in it. Allow the knowing of the truth of your beingness lift you to the top of the mountain where the highest of divine ideas rush into you with osmotic ease. Let yourself vibrate so high with the knowingness of the truth of your being that you shake free of the shackles of outdated and limiting patterns and rise into the stratosphere of a new paradigm, one of freedom and creativity and fearlessness, grounded in a broader, deeper, more passionate knowing of who you truly are. And then, surrender to gratitude. Gratitude for knowing this truth. Gratitude for the unfailing action of the law. Rest there for a moment. Be in that. Allow that gratitude to nourish and sustain you. Just let it flow. There is always, always more. And so from this place of power, of greater certainty, of grace, of gratitude, we let it be. And so it is.
And the light shines through each window, and the door is open wide, and each question has an answer if you'll only look inside. There is a place where every sorrow ends. Come with me. Where every hope and every truth begins. Come with me. What a pleasant journey. Isn't very far. We can go together, stay right where you are. And now it's time to start. It's right here in your heart. This is my song, O God of all the nations, a song of peace for lands afar and mine. This is my home, the country where my heart is. Here are my hopes, my dreams, my holy shrine. But other hearts in other lands are beating with hopes and dreams as true and high as mine. My country's skies are bluer than the ocean, and sunlight beams on clover leaf and pine. But other lands have sunlight too and clover, and skies are everywhere as blue as mine. Oh, hear my song, thou God of all the nations, a song of peace for their land and for mine.
My name is Dr. Richard Loren Held. Always, it is a pleasure and an honor to welcome you to Unity in Lynnwood. For those with children, please note that youth and family ministries gatherings are launching at this very moment as well. Credentials are available by contacting the program director. Her name is Stacy Bailey. Practical spirituality, welcoming community. Yet again, a short mission statement that is so broad in what it represents. And so every week I like to speak one of the 6 bullet points, one of the 6 values statements that we developed in conversation with your Board of Trustees beginning in late 2014. Take a deep breath. Today I share the first of the 6. It reads as follows. We offer a metaphysical teaching which encourages regular spiritual practice, including prayer, meditation, affirmation, denial, service, and study. Please avail yourself to the vehicles of support which are available to you. Visit unityinlynnwood.org. Meet your leaders, read recent blogs, enjoy archived podcasts. You may even enlist prayer support, download brochures, or engage with UIL on your social media platform of choice. You may download the Unity in Lynnwood app. It's free from both Android and Apple stores. New, you may click on the Breeze link provided in your Facebook chat window. This will allow text, reminders, and notifications. And as always, if you would like assistance with any of the above, simply contact church administration. You'll find our staff always happy to help. It's the history I've shared every year. It was 1 year after the end of the war in Columbus, Mississippi, that a Miss Morton, Mrs. Fontaine, Mrs. Hill, and Mrs. Sykes regular visitors to what was known as Friendship Cemetery. They were pulling weeds and briars and dropping flowers onto the graves of Confederate soldiers when they found themselves collectively compelled to begin dropping flowers onto the graves of Union soldiers as well. And this custom found such a hearty response from other women in Columbus that it resulted in a determination to make this decoration of all soldiers' graves an annual occurrence. And this story, of course, is told as the first Decoration Day. But it was 3 years after the end of the war that General and Mrs. Grant presided over ceremonies at Arlington National Cemetery, during which children from the Soldiers and Sailors Orphan Home joined members of the Grand Army of the Republic in dropping flowers onto Union and Confederate graves while reciting prayers and singing hymns. And this is told as the first Decoration Day. In fact, so widespread was this impulse to honor after a war that had divided states, communities, even families, that such observances occurred spontaneously and simultaneously without any political or military encouragement in locations from Arlington Heights, Virginia, to Boalsburg, Pennsylvania, Knoxville, Tennessee, to Jackson, Mississippi, Kingston, Georgia, to Memphis, Tennessee, to Carbondale, New York, and the list goes on, and the list goes on, and the list goes on, all told as the first Decoration Day. And that's the history that I've shared year after year. But this year, I'd like to introduce you to David Blight. Now, David Blight is a Yale professor. And it was during Professor Blight's Civil War research that a curator at Yale invited him to peruse some unsorted materials, including a file that was labeled the first Decoration Day. Well, this dusty file recounted the story of Charleston, South Carolina's Washington race course and jockey club, transformed by the Confederate soldiers into something of an open-air prison where 257 Union soldiers died from disease and exposure, only to be buried in a mass grave behind the grandstands. This dusty file recounted the story of Charleston's fall and the story of the Confederate evacuation and the story of that handful of emaciated freed slaves who exhumed those 257 bodies and fashioned proper burials for each under a newly constructed archway that bore the whitewashed words, "Martyrs of the Race Course." This dusty file recounted the story of a procession that began at 9 o'clock in the morning with some 3,000 newly freed black school children marching around that race course. They were followed by some 300 black women, organized to distribute clothing and other necessities to freed people as the Patriotic Association, and they were followed by black men organized as the Mutual Aid Society, marching in cadence, and they were followed by even more white citizens and black citizens together, all carrying armloads of roses and flowers and wreaths and crosses. This dusty file recounted the story of some 30 speeches by Union officers, abolitionist missionaries, local ministers, all dotted with rising choruses of America and "We'll rally around the flag and the Star-Spangled Banner." One correspondent described, and I quote, "When all had left the holy mounds, the tops and the sides, all the spaces between them were one mass of flowers. Not a speck of earth could be seen. And as the breeze wafted the sweet perfumes, there were few eyes that were not dim with tears of joy.
In the final months of the Civil War, the Confederate Army converted a horse racing track into an outdoor prison for Union soldiers. Close to 260 men died there and were buried in a mass grave. At the end of the war, in an expression of reverence and gratitude, 28 African American workers gave them proper burials. They inscribed above their final resting place, "Martyrs of the Racecourse." 2 weeks later, thousands of freed slaves, school children, and Union soldiers made a procession to the cemetery to pay tribute to their sacrifice. They laid flowers on the graves, listened to speeches, and picnicked on the grass. This informal observance, and others like it, would evolve over time into the holiday we know as Memorial Day. On this day, we remember and honor all of those who have died from all branches of service in conflicts fought by U.S. forces.
Hey, YouTube fans, this is Lawrence Fishburne from History.
So while history tends to present us with a Memorial Day that is a recognition of those who stood with, and we do give rise to such a recognition today, any study of the history of those inaugural gatherings introduces us to Memorial Day as a recognition of those who stood against as well. Any study of the history of those inaugural events introduces us to Memorial Day as an expression of overcoming, an expression of forgiveness, an expression of unity, an expression of brotherhood and sisterhood. The great Hebrew myth reminds us that humanity departed that garden of idyllic unity for an incarnation that we might experience up and down, light and shadow, beginning and ending, male, female, joy and sorrow, sweet and savory, black and white. And yet, even in the midst of this incarnation, there's something within us that remembers that garden of idyllic unity from which all individuated and to which all must ultimately return. In other words, there's something within us that remembers our highest nature within the eternal unity of an infinite God. And maybe this is what spiritual awakening is. Spiritual awakening is a remembering of our highest nature within the eternal unity of an infinite God. And as such, spiritual awakening always calls us to become more as individuals as it calls us to come together as peoples. Spiritual awakening calls us to stretch beyond appearances of race and age and gender. Spiritual awakening calls us to reach across the aisles of politic and orientation and religion. Spiritual awakening calls us to move beyond limitations of history and rhetoric and fear. Spiritual awakening awakens us to abandon the egoic belief that by which we find ourselves divided could ever be more compelling than that in which we find ourselves united. So the Memorial Day question becomes, where might we be allowing a painful history to divide? Where might we be allowing a tenacious misunderstanding to divide? Where might we be allowing a stinging disappointment to divide? Where might we be allowing a clinging expectation to divide? Spiritual awakening, this remembering of our highest nature within the eternal unity of an infinite God, calls us to symbolically drop flowers onto the unadorned graves of all without any regard for anything other than the compulsion to do so. It was following a recent Memorial Day Sunday that I got a message, and it read, "At the risk of speaking out of turn, I left with some concerns. The first thing that struck me was that all four of the people you quoted were men." It continued, "2 were slaveholders, at least one was a rapist. By contrast, when you talked about the 4 women who were decorating the graves of the Confederate soldiers, you referred to them as Mrs. Morton, Mrs. Fontaine, etc. It would have been nice to hear their first names, as they were people in their own right, not just recipients of their husbands' last names. Finally, I thought you might be interested in a bit more historical context about Memorial Day, because we're not often taught the whole truth about our country's history, especially when it comes to the contributions of people of color. I really hope this doesn't land badly." Well, it didn't land easily. And I didn't let it be known, of course, at least not much, but my research, that thought screamed. The long hours invested in crafting lesson after lesson, week after week. Why, who does this person think? The thought continued. Perhaps you recognize it. Now, my strategy for people who want to discuss such and such a situation with me is to state in advance that they may count on me to listen and that they may count on me to hear, but that they may not count on me to respond for at least 24 hours, sometimes 48. And I employ this strategy because when I hear difficult things, I want to allow enough time for whatever wisdom might be there to rise above that din of, but my research, and why, who does this person think? And so I sent a response just this past Friday as I turned my attention to Memorial Day. It read, "I want you to know that I've taken your words to heart. And I look forward to sharing a fuller, truer history of the holiday on Sunday to include the remarkable contributions of people of color alongside those of Jane Fontaine and Martha Morton, Kate Hill, and Augusta Sykes, people in their own right." And I concluded by writing that an interview revealed that Professor Blight called the Avery Institute to gather more information about that May 1st, 1865 gathering of 10,000 in Charleston. I'm humbled to recognize that the voice on the answering end just as easily could have been mine in that initial response, which was, "I've never heard of it." Any study of the history of those inaugural events introduces us to Memorial Day as an expression of the human capacity to begin again. And while you, like those who inaugurated those first Memorial Day recognitions, are certain to find yourself surrounded by more than a few for whom your awakening will be uncomfortable, what I can promise you is that it will ultimately leave you basking in the sweet fragrance of a soul so deeply satisfied that the discomfort is quite simply worth it.
I'll light a candle in your memory, though I don't know who you are. When I think about your family, I will wish upon a star. I pray that they'll find peace someday. I pray they'll make it through. I'll light a candle in your memory to honor you. I'll light a candle for America. May we feel peace inside. We'll hold each other closer and wipe the tears we've cried. I pray we'll bond together. I pray that we'll pull through. I'll light a candle for America, for me and for you. I'll light a candle for humanity, for the good that's yet to come. As we overlook our differences and join now as one, I pray we'll come out stronger in this world I'm dreaming of. I'll light a candle for humanity, to be a world living in love.
Whew. Wow. Thank you, Dr. Richard. That was inspiring and moving and gave me a lot to think about. Thank you. Thank you, Matthew. Okay, and now we've come to the time in our service where we have an opportunity to stand in the flow of substance and give to our spiritual community so that it can continue to flourish and to nourish us. In this time of virtual community, we don't have the opportunity to pass the offering bag, and so today we will once again bless our offerings, our individual offerings, right where we are. So if you will take your offering, whether it's a check or whether I was recently told of someone who holds their iPhone in their hand, or if it's the intention of an amount that you would like to tithe to your community, just hold that in your hand. And let yourself become a conduit. Let yourself remember that you are a conduit for spiritual substance, that you are abundance in action, that you are prosperous, and that your abundance is a blessing. Just breathe that truth in. Let it infill you. That flow grows stronger and stronger until it's like a rushing waterfall. You are abundance. You are spirit substance. And let the blessing of that truth flow through you and into your hands and into your offering and out through your fingers, taking the blessing of that all the way here to us, which is no space at all, and out into the greater world where it does a great work. And so it is. Thank you.
If I could tell the world just one thing, it would be we're all okay. And not to worry, 'cause worry is wasteful, and you golden shoes. It didn't steal your laughter, and heartache came to visit me, and I knew it wasn't ever after. We will fight, not out of spite, for someone must stand up for what's right. 'Cause when there's a man who has no voice, there our shall go singing. My hands are small, I know, but they're not yours, they are my own. And they're not yours, they are my own. And I am never broken. In the end, only kindness matters. In the end, only kindness matters. I will get down on my knees and I will pray. I will get down on my knees and I will pray. I will get down on my knees and I will pray. My hands are small, I know, but they're not yours, they are my own. And they're not yours, they are my own. And I am never broken. My hands are small, I know, but they're not yours, they are my own. And they're not yours, they are my own. And I am never broken. We are never broken. We are God's eyes, God's hands. 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 We are God's eyes, God's hands, God's eyes.
Oh, thank you, Teresa Straughn. There must come a point in everyone's adulthood in which having somebody be proud of you becomes less appropriate, but Teresa came through our programming here at Unity in Lynnwood and prepares to leave for home after some family time tomorrow. Thanks for being with us, Teresa. It's always a pleasure to welcome you home. Yet again, in collaboration with credible sources and area leaders, what I want you to know is that I and Reverend Nina, your board of trustees, are constantly monitoring, we're interpreting, we're praying and planning in preparation for our collective return to campus. And we continue to promise to keep the most current information available to you through our various communications channels, vehicles. At present, what we know is that there will be no on-site gatherings through June 21st. That's what we know right now. No on-site gatherings through June 21st. Upcoming online events include Spiritual Awakenings. It is our Wednesday service, hosted, facilitated, engineered, imagined by our own Associate Minister, Reverend Nina Clark. That's Wednesday, the 27th of May, 7 o'clock p.m. Pacific time. Next Sunday, please join us if you are not familiar with the artistry of Daniel Nahmod. He'll be offering words and music. That's next Sunday, the 31st. Please note that our women's retreat with Ricky Byers has been postponed to September 25 and 26. The cost is $125. If that event becomes a virtual event, the fees will be adjusted. Registration is available by going to our app or by going to our website, clicking on the calendar page, and choosing that particular weekend. It will take you right to the registration form. Always, if our prayer chaplains can support you, if I can support you, if Reverend Nina Clark can support you during the week, know that our confidential prayer line is available to you. Beyond that, know that while we encourage you to stay in touch with each other, we would love to stay in touch with you as well. If you would allow one of our chaplains or one of your clergy to give you a telephone call once in a while, just write or ring. Express interest in what we call a care call. Do include your telephone number, and yes, and yet again, all are welcome. And by all, I mean all. That means you. You. Let's close our eyes yet again. And let's close by turning to that which we hold God to be. Let's do that. It was the great theologian Emmett Fox who said that in all human circumstances, the remedy, the first remedy, is to turn to God, to think on the God of your understanding. So let's do that. And what that means for me is that I turn to an inner awareness of life. That's where I place my attention. An inner awareness of life. Life without beginning, life without end. Life that began long before I assumed this physical form, and life which will continue long after I have relinquished it. I turn my attention to a sufficiency. I loose my fascination with the world of lack, the world of scarcity. I loose my fascination with that, and I place my attention instead upon that source of all that is ample. That's what it means to me. To think on God for me means I place my attention upon a wisdom, That which needs to be known by me is always at hand. God does not withhold. Mine is to make myself available to the wisdom that already is. And always what it means to me is to place my attention upon a harmony. A harmony, you might call it a love. To place my attention upon a harmony that longs, ever presses, ever seeks to make its way into this world of form. Restoring balance. Revealing its equilibrium through human hands, such as yours, through human hearts, such as mine. This is what it means to me to think upon God. This is how I close our time together. And we finish with sung words of blessing.
May the long time sun shine upon you, all love surround you, and the pure light within